Hi, this is Brian with ActiveMelody.com. Well, I'm excited about this week's lesson because at the end of this, you're going to have a whole new understanding for how to improvise when it comes to playing rhythm and lead. There's going to be some lead components, but really understanding how to play simple triad chords. You don't need all 6 strings. In fact, everything we're going to be playing is on the top 3 strings. You can go ahead and take the bottom 3 strings off your guitar if you want to. Don't do that, I'm kidding. But you're not going to be using them. And so we're going to be looking at dominant 7 chords and 6 chords and 9 chords and major chords and minor chords and how you can use the same 3 shapes to get to all of those. It's going to be a very eye-opening lesson. I hope so for a lot of you. I've got 8 different jam tracks that come with this lesson so that you can practice playing everything in different keys. And I've also got 5 handout or PDF printouts that are quick reference guides to be able to find all these different chord voicings we're going to be covering. So I've got the lesson split into the 2 parts. We'll take a look at the first half in this video. If you want to get all of those assets as well as the part 2 video and the tablature for everything I played in the intro, you can get all of those things by going to ActiveMelody.com, go to the weekly lessons page and do a search for EP362. Alright, so I'm really excited about this week's lesson because I think this is going to be a breakthrough for a lot of you. And this is a lesson I wish I had done a long time ago because I think this would clear up a lot of questions. But you might have listened to the intro and thought, well, that sounds kind of simple. And it is fairly easy to play technically, but the knowledge you're going to get out of this and the way that you're going to be able to visualize the neck and start using these 6 chords, 9 chords, dominant 7 chords, all using triads. So everything we're going to be playing is played on the top 3 strings. So we're going to simplify things. We're going to be focusing on triads. Triad just means 3 notes. So we're playing, and so a chord is really made up of a root, third, and a fifth, which are 3 different notes. But the mindset for a lot of us, I was the same way. When you first start playing guitar, you learn those chords down in first position. Some people call them cowboy chords. And a lot of times, you're playing all 6 strings when you do that. Or you're playing 5 strings, or if you're playing the D chord, you're playing 4. It just depends on how you learn them and all of that. But anyway, I think that's sort of a mistake in a way to start learning that way, even though we all do, because you think that you got to do that. And so you get into bar chord mentality, and it really becomes hard to play. But then you see these advanced players, and they're playing these little triads and jumping all over the neck and making it look effortless. And so that's what we're going to be looking at, is how to do that. And so here's how I've got the lesson split, the hierarchy. We're going to be looking at 3 different shapes. So major chord, dominant 7 chord, and minor chord. Those are the 3 different top level buckets. And then within each of those, we'll be able to do major chord, minor chord, dominant 7, 6 chords, and 9 chords, just by learning those initial 3 shapes. Sounds complicated, but trust me, it's not. So this blues that we're going to be playing over is a major key, and it's played in the key of G. Oh, and the other thing I should just mention is, for premium members, not only do you have access to this jam track in the key of G, I have it in 8 keys, so you can practice everything you're going to learn playing it in all these other keys. So it's a really good way to practice everything we're going to be covering here. Okay, so this jam track is, for this lesson, is in the key of G, and we're going to start off, even though it's in a major key, we're actually going to start off learning these minor shapes, 3 minor triads. We're going to start with that, and you'll see why in a minute. So we're going to take an E minor, for example, and I'm going to show you 3 different minor triad voicings. Some of you probably know this, but even if you know this, just bear with me because you'll learn something here. Okay, so the first one looks like this. So we're going to start with index finger on the 3rd fret 1st string, middle finger on the 4th fret 3rd string, and I use my pinky for this, but you may use your ring finger, but it's the 5th fret 2nd string. So when we play those 3 notes, we're playing an E minor. That's just a different voicing than you might be used to for an E minor. It's the same shape, by the way, if we're thinking like caged mentality. This is the D minor chord shape. We've just slid it up 2 frets. We're playing the top 3 strings. So that's it. Voicing number 1. Voicing number 2 is super easy. It's a little stair step. We're going to start it up here on the 7th fret 1st string, and look at that. 7th fret 1st string, 8th fret 2nd string, 9th fret 3rd string. So now we've got voicing number 2. So E minor voicing 1, E minor voicing 2, and then the last one is even easier than that because we're just going to bar the first 3 strings on the 12th fret. So now we've got 3 different ways to play that E minor chord. All right, so now that you have those 3 minor chord voicings, we're going to take a look at how to use those in this jam track that's played in G major. Why would we start with minor chord voicings? The reason for that is you can take those same chord voicings, those same 3 you just learned, and those will also be your 6 chord when you're playing in a major key, or your 9 chord, those same 3 voicings. Let me demonstrate that. So if I were to just play those same voicings over an E minor chord, it's going to sound like this. Very minor, very sad, right? So now let's take those same 3 minor chord voicings, those same 3 E minor chord voicings, and play those if there's a G chord underneath us. Not an E minor, but a G. Listen to the difference. Right? You hear it? It has a jazzy kind of feel. Totally different feel, totally different vibe. It's the same chord voicing. So now learning that one triad, or those 3 triads I should say. It's actually all just an E minor, but in 3 different positions. But by learning that, you now also know how to play E minor chord in 3 different positions and a G6 chord in 3 positions. So what's the connection between the G and the E minor? Well, E minor is the relative minor of G. And if you want that 6 chord sound, the 6 to the 9 chord, I'll get to the 9 chord in a minute, but like that real slow, like we're doing in the blues here, all you have to do is whatever key that or whatever chord that you're wanting to find it for, you just find the relative minor of that. That's also the 6 in the major scale. So in G it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's your 6. That's your E minor, right? So you'd play that triad. And now that you know how to do it on the top 3 strings, it makes it very easy. And I know in the beginning you're gonna have to kind of work out the math, like how do I? Okay, so we're playing in the key of A, so I have to work out, is it, how do I find the relative minor? Eventually you'll just know, oh, it's F sharp minor. That's the minor, relative minor of A. And you'll just kind of learn those for all your major chords. There's not that many of them, and most songs are kind of played in the same keys anyway. All right, so now let's take that knowledge and let's double it by just doing one thing. Everything that you just learned, move it down 2 frets, and now you're playing the 9 chord. And I've mentioned this many times, but anytime you're playing a 6 chord triad, a 6 chord triad like this, where I've got 3 notes, I can take those same 3 notes and then move them down 2 frets to be playing the 9 chord. So if that's a G6 chord, that's a G9 chord. Same for all of the other voicings. If that's a G6 chord, that's a G9. If that's a 6, that's a 9. You just go down 2 frets for each. What that means is you can alternate now back and forth between the 6 and the 9. Let me play along. Let me just play the G chord again and let you hear now the 6 and the 9 together in context with a G chord. Hear it? It has a very kind of like to me it's got Western swing all over it, but it's like a jazzier way of playing the blues. And so it's just thinking about your setup a little different than you might, and that's kind of getting to that next level. When we start off, if the chord is a G C, if the chords are G, C, and D, you play a G chord, a C chord, and a D chord. We're still playing in the G family when I play a G6 and a G9. But I think about it a little different when I think about these triads, because I just go right into these minor chord triads. It's easy for me to find. All right, so with that knowledge, you've now learned how to play the minor chord triad in 3 positions, the 6 chord triad in 3 positions, and the 9 chord triad in 3 positions. So that's pretty cool. 3 different chord families, all played off the same 3 shapes. One last thing I'll throw in. When I showed you that first chord, I said that was the D minor chord shape. When we went up here to that second one, that would be your A minor chord shape. If you look at your A minor chord and look at the first 3 strings, now obviously you've got the open string, but that's that same shape for the A minor, and then that bar would be the same as your E minor, right? Open, same thing, an octave higher. So just kind of keep that in mind. Okay, Let's move on to major chords. So now we've got minor 6s and 9s out of the way. Let's go to a G major chord. We're going to look at 3 different voicings for these as well. We're going to start with this one. A lot of you know this already. We're going to bar the first 2 strings on the 3rd fret, and then we're going to put our middle finger down on the 4th fret 3rd string. Now that is really just your G. If you think of your G major bar chord, it's the top 3 strings of that chord. So I think of that as the E shape out of Caged. That would be like your E voicing, a little triad there. And the way that you remember that is the fret that you're barring on, that would be the note of the chord. So that's a G note. And this is one of those cases where if you haven't memorized the note names on the first string, the first string and the 6th string are the same. So if you memorize them on one, you've got it on the other. But you got to do that. You got to at least memorize the notes on the first string, or the 6th string rather, and then the 5th string, because then you can very easily identify your E chord shape and your A chord shape. That's the starting point, and then you can get to the other 3 strings down the road, but start with those 3. Okay, chord voicing number 1. Chord voicing number 2, it looks like this. That's our D chord shape out of Caged. It's exactly the same as playing a D chord, but we're playing it up here, where our middle finger is on the 7th fret 1st string. So we've got the E shape, the D shape, and then the A shape. Just like we had, by the way, when we played the minor chord. We had E minor chord shape, A minor chord shape, and D minor chord shape. It's the same with these. So E, D, and then to get to that A shape, I play it like this. When we're playing on the top 3 strings, you have index finger on the 10th fret 1st string, and then 12th fret strings 2 and 3. And if you look at your A chord down in 1st position, if I looked at the top 3 strings, you could see that's all I'm doing. Now I'm capoing with my finger here. Take it all the way up, and I'm using that shape to play the G chord. So now you've got your major chord voicings. And one thing you can do, you can slide into these. And I do that when I play through the jam track. So you've got major chord, 6 chord, 9 chord, and minor chord. The only other one we're going to look at is the 7 chord, the dominant 7. Some people get confused with major 7 versus just a 7. A major 7 is a different thing. We're not doing triads for those, but we are going to do a dominant 7 because you use those all the time. And the dominant 7 is really just a variation on these major chord shapes that we've already learned anyway. But instead of me starting with one down here, I never use that 7 shape. I just never use it. So I'm just going to skip that and keep things simple, and we're just going to look at 3, just like we've done. Keep everything simple. These are the ones I would use anyway. So if I'm playing a G chord up here using that D chord shape, that means if I use the D7 chord shape, but play it up here, I'm playing a G7. So you've got now a G7 here. Now I can slide up a few frets where now I'm at the 10th fret, strings 1 and 3. And then I've got my index finger on the 8th fret, string 2. That's another voicing of that. So you have one like this, one like this, and then we'll come up to a really easy one where we go back to that bar the first 3 strings on the 12th fret, just like we did for the minor chord, but we're going to add the F note there, which would be the 13th fret 1st string. So now you've got 3 voicings, 3 7 chord voicings using those top 3 strings. Now that is so much information. You could play just about anything with the dominant 7 chord, the major chord, the minor chord, the 6 chord, and the 9 chord. And you have 3 different voicings for each of those just using the top 3 strings. It can't get any easier than that. It's just very basic, but you can do so much from it. And we'll look at, in the part 2, we'll get into how you can take those shapes and start playing leads out of those shapes just by picturing those voicings. All right, let me go into the first time through the song, and we'll go through that. It's all going to make sense now that you understand the context of it. But it's a slow blues played in the key of G, 12-bar blues, and I started with the G6 to the 9. And I played it like that. That's where I'm using that D minor shape. So I'm sliding into the G6 and then down to the G9. I'm starting with that. And then I come up to the up to that. And what is that? Well, that's a G6 just played up here. It's the other voicing. It's the stair step voicing. And I went 1, 2, 3, 1. Pick the notes out of the chord. All right, so we have, we're going to come back down here, do the same thing again, and then I'm going to come back up here to this G6 up here and go, and walk it down to the G9. Remember, you go down 2 frets and you're at the G9. You can also, though, you can go, so look, I hit the fret in between those two, so I kind of chromatically walk down. Okay, and then I came up and went, so now we go to the 4 chord, which is your C. And look what I'm doing there. I'm doing the same thing I did over the G, but I'm playing it here. So that's a C6 and a C9. And so remember, to find that C6, it's just the relative minor of C, or the 6th interval. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That would be your A note. So it's an A minor triad. Slide from the A6 to the A9, and then I went. Now what did I do there? I just went from this voicing, that C6, to this one. Now when we played it in G, I was up here, right? Barring the first 3 strings. But if I'm playing the A minor triad, which is the relative minor of C, hopefully this is making sense, that's where it would be. It'd be on that 5th fret. And I just walk it down from the 6 to the 9. We walk it down chromatically. And just to re-mention, I do have a printout, a PDF file, and I have it in all the different shapes that we've covered, and I also have it in every key. So if you want a quick reference to be able to look up what is a C6 and C9, what are those triads again, you can look those up in those printouts. Those are available to premium members. If you're not sure what I mean when I say it's the relative, you know, the A minor is the relative minor of C, you can just look it up and see how to play it that way. All right, so back from the beginning of this, we have our G6 to the 9, up to the G6, 6 to 9 again, and then 6 to the 9 over in this position, and then we go to the A6 to the A9, A6 to the A9, back to the G. Actually, the second time through I went up here and just did it right there. And then we came up here and played it up here. Okay, so then to conclude it, we go to the D. There's your minor triad. That's a B minor triad. So that's a D6 to a D9. Then we go C6 to the C9, and then back to the G. All right, so hopefully this has given you a lot of ideas. And remember, as a premium member, you get all those extra lesson materials. You get the printout sheets, you get the jam tracks in every key. And then you'll also get the part 2 video where we go over the second half. And that's where I go into playing more of a lead part, but we're still using these same chord voicings that we've already covered. And then I'll throw in some dominant 7s in that second part as well, just so you can see how that fits into context. All right, I'll see you in part 2 where we'll go over the rest of this.